There was a guy at the health club talking about his low testosterone, and he actually went to a doctor to have it checked out. And I said, "Well, how did you know? How did you know you had low testosterone?" And he said, "Well, he said I could tell because when I was watching Netflix, when I would get to the sad part, I'd start to tear up and start to cry." He said, "I knew something was wrong." So I asked him how he's doing now, and he said, "Oh, after he's had replacement therapy, he's feeling so much better." And I said, "Well, can you tell the difference?" And he said, "Sure, because I've gone back to not giving a shit." Welcome to Conservative Coffee Hour. I'm Stanley Smith at Conservative Coffee Hour. I hope we don't have a dropping testosterone level, but I do think we're interested in our hopes and aspirations and countering that and balancing that with the realities and some of the strategies of finding our way out of some of these political, social, and cultural messes we seem to be in. It's not always the same thing, the realities and our hopes and aspirations. But I will mention that increasingly we don't really hear about hopes or aspirations anymore. It used to be part of the culture, but now it all seems to be about strategy and winning at all costs, even if we have to out cheat the other team. Um, in fact, it's really very telling. And it's probably more akin to the idea of the them versus us as opposed to the them and us. We've all somehow been pitted against each other for some other end than actually moving the narrative forward. And a lot of cases, I think it's resulted in a lot of people not giving a shit. On last week's call, Brian Castle from the local GOP shared with us that they're doing really well with women and minorities, but not so great with the young white males. Maybe maybe they have low testosterone. Larry, the co-host on Conservative Coffee Hour, often used to chastise people, young guys at the club. He said, "You guys need to grow some balls." So I guess we kind of wonder, well, where are the men in all these conversations and all these needs and challenges in our world? Last week we had guest Kelly Nelson who talked about the topic of the church. Like, in addition to the man, where's the church? Where's the voice of the church? And we explored that a little further, and she explained some of the sticky points of navigating as a church and also weighing that with your charitable tax considerations. And in some cases, church has found it necessary to be silent. In other cases, they've been found it necessary to simply parrot back the party line of current culture. And it's kind of ironic because traditionally church is counterculture, but now somehow they seem to be a mouthpiece for current culture. And what is current culture? Current culture is a race to the bottom. This week on another call, we looked at the Grammys and the topic and the visuals and the messaging of the Grammys. And a lot of people were seeing the face of Satan in the Grammy Awards. And somebody on the call pointed out that, we really can't shelter children or people from all of this anymore. We need to expose people to this so that they can adapt and accept it. And that just made me go, hmm. Uh, Later, we talked about the topic of sex and perversion in the church, and there's a lot of corruption and sex in the church, and I guess that's the case anywhere. But later, I was talking to someone from the call, and she said her experience in church choir is that yes, it essentially was a sex cult. It's been a long time since I've been at a sex party, but I'll tell you, actually, looking back, yeah, there was always somebody from the choir there. This week, we didn't quite have a sex party, but we had the mayoral debate here in Chicago, and probably wasn't nearly as entertaining, but it was a great mix of people and a great opportunity to see all these candidates. I think we've got nine official candidates, and seeing is believing. The debate was held on Thursday evening in the Lincoln Dining Room on the sixth floor of Chicago's Union League Club. During the debate, some facts and figures were shared, and one of them that caught my attention was the 16% drop in business leases last year, which I see as significant. 16% drop. as opposed to the previous year, and that we have a 40% truancy rate in the city of Chicago. They also shared that carjacking is down, but car theft is up. They also said that 12,000 guns have been taken off the street this year, which is a lot of guns. 12,000 illegal guns have been taken off the street. And considerable conversation was given to the concept of Chicago being a sanctuary city. I don't think anyone debated that it should be or could be or would be. It just simply was a topic of discussion that it is and how best it can be, which again makes me kind of go, hmm. One candidate, Cam Buckner, who is our state senator from this district downtown in Springfield, and I've heard him on Zoom calls before, and I appreciate his candor and his forthcoming on a lot of topics. But halfway through his presentation, and based on my previous exposure, I thought he really is a nut. And as soon as I thought that, he mentioned that he recently has been working closely with the Fourth Presbyterian Church of Chicago on the topic of illegal immigrants and providing sanctuary for them here in the city of Chicago. So, as I close in more and more on that topic, I'm struck with the notion of something I made up today, the idea of cultural Marxism, like the idea of money, 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 and oftentimes back to the topic of church. Church is a money machine. They want to be sure they have their money so they can do their good works, and that is a form of Marxism, having control of the capital so they can control the goods and services in society. But all this is probably going to be a moot point, because the money, 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 it's all going to blow up in people's faces. So the idea of those commercial leases coming up, and the idea that leases are not being signed and the rates are dropping, really points to an elephant in the room, which is not on the radar, that next year these leases are not going to be renewed, and these landlords are not lowering their rates because their mortgages will not allow it to happen, and they're essentially going to default. I see this as a very alarming outcome, but some people try to explain to me that it's okay, someone will end up owning those buildings, and it will most likely be the banks and financial institutions. So in a sense, the banks will be owning our downtown. So who were the standouts at the debate? For me, I wasn't taking notes. I was simply watching and observing, and I was struck by Alderman Sawyer. He was well dressed and well presented. His suit fit properly, and he looked like he had it all together. Is that important? Maybe not, but it makes a good impression. And that's what I'm a voter. I was looking to see who stood out, and he was really well versed on a number of topics and well spoken. He also shared the sentiment that he is a lawyer and a real estate broker, but he doesn't practice either one of those professions currently. He's simply serving as alderman. And because of that, he described himself as lacking a safety net, which most of the other candidates have as their advantage. Another standout to me was Sophia King. I don't even know if I've ever heard of her before, but she had a clear message. Throughout the debate, she used the word collaboration. She kept coming back to that word without elaborating on exactly what it meant to her, but she used that as a theme, that all things can be accomplished through collaboration. Do I necessarily agree with the collaborative model? Not necessarily, but I appreciated that she had a word, a message, and she kept coming back to that. She also seemed very well versed on topics. Another standout was this Jamal Green. Today I'm thinking, he was kind of the Bernie Sanders of the debate on the spectrum of ideological viewpoints. And I appreciate that. He also was well presented in a suit and a green tie, which again, as dumb as that is, association, Jamal Green. I saw the green tie. He mentioned the green, vote green, go green. It was not a bad messaging strategy. So Jamal also shared the sentiment that he was not a politician. He's simply getting into this to stir the pot and to raise issues and put a different perspective on it, looking from his perspective as not a politician, back at the lineup of politicians. He's casting the spotlight on the fact that these are the people that got us into this mess, and they're still serving. All these people are holding office. So they're campaigning on the idea of what they're going to do, how they're going to fix things. But Jamal pointed out the idea that they're already in it. So where is all the fixing they've been doing? At the other end of the spectrum, we have Willie Wilson, Dr. Willie Wilson. And he presents himself as a businessman because that's who he is. Dr. Wilson suggested, and I like ideas. In the firmament of ideas, this was a good one. He said, you know what we need for economic redevelopment, for bringing people back downtown, which was a pretty big part of the debate, the question, what can we do to bring people back downtown? And Dr. Wilson said, you know, you need big things to make a lot of smaller things. So big business brings in smaller business, cultural institutions bring in smaller businesses. And I appreciated that. And I said, Dr. Wilson also presented himself as not a politician, but a businessman and an outsider looking in. So between the spectrum, I guess I would, in this moment, think of Jamal as being the Bernie Sanders, and maybe Willie Wilson maybe be more of the Donald Trump on the spectrum. And Dr. Wilson did use the term um, making Chicago good for business again and making Chicago safe again. And he also, I love this, the topic of crime. He said, you know, we need to make crime illegal again. So, but on the topic of making a lot of smaller things out of bigger things, I was immediately reminded of, well, of course, I was reminded of Marshall Field and Company. That was a major driver, economic driver, because it was a big thing and it brought in a lot of smaller things. If you look at the traditional model of retail shopping, always had an anchor department store, and that brought in a lot of smaller stores. And so it's the same model. Maybe that particular model is over, but a big thing bringing in small things. And I, second to the department store, the second things I thought of were, of course, Oprah Winfrey and Michael Jordan, which probably, truth be known, were huge economic drivers of their time. Oprah brought put the spotlight on the city, notoriety of the city, and she was an advocate for so many different projects and events. And also, Michael Jordan was a huge driver. You could just put Michael Jordan jersey in your window, and sales would be improved. So I think I captured that as a good idea that we could all take into the world and model. Also, I'll mention that next week will be Michael Jordan's birthday. He'll be 60. Jamal pointed out again that most people running for this for the mayor's position already have the job. And again, what are they doing? Mr. Vallis was okay. I know people are rooting for Mr. Vallis, um, but he was just okay. People have vilified Mr. Garcia, Chuy Garcia, and I didn't really mentally make a lot of notes about what he said, but he also came across as okay, but maybe just less okay than Mr. Vallis. You know, some people I talked to said they fell asleep during the debate. Maybe that's Mr. Vallis and Chuy Garcia. They're just, I mean, it's hard to get excited about them. It's hard to be passionate about them personally, but we can talk about that on a Saturday call. Lori, I guess, was predictable. She looked better than you might expect. She looked good. I don't dislike Lori, but just when I was thinking Lori was doing okay, and I was also thinking these Fox News people were doing an excellent job with this debate. They were very well prepared. They knew the candidates and they asked tailored, respectful questions, speaking to their bailiwick of topics. They set things up. A couple ones they teed up perfectly for Dr. Wilson, even though he didn't quite take advantage of the questions. But the questions were well presented and they were tailored to the candidates, and it was very well done. And just as I was thinking that, Lori went off on them. Lori went off on Fox News and called them out by name. Like, if this is, Fox News's idea of a well presented, fair debate, they were sorely mistaken. And Fox pushed back and said, that is not accurate, Madame Mayor. And it wasn't. It was another moment of a low moment in the debate, and it didn't reflect well on Lori, and doesn't reflect if it doesn't reflect well on Lori, it doesn't reflect well on the city. Lori was hearing in the questioning and the dialogue during the debate of an indictment of the schools and our school children, and she took offense at that. When I was in school, I was described by some of my professors as suffering from angry young man syndrome. I'm not a psychologist, even though I pretend to be one sometimes. I might suggest that perhaps Lori is suffering from angry Black woman syndrome. When we continued with the debate, the topic of the city and the education system and the students and the idea of money, money seemed to be the answer to most of the problems in the people in the middle of the spectrum. I don't think Jamal and Dr. Wilson, I don't think they were operating from that cultural Marxism perspective, but the people in the middle, they were falling into the idea that we just need the money in order to exact change in our situation. So, I mean, aside from the money, who was the winner of this debate? I mean, I'm open for your viewpoints on the Saturday call, but as I surveyed the room at the Union League Club in the sixth floor Lincoln dining room, I was struck by the hushed silence of the interior, the navy blue walls, and the tremendous collection of art surrounding the event. You could catch a glimpse of an amazing piece of art in the background as the debate continued and the camera moved from candidate to candidate. It was a lovely backdrop. And as always at the Union League Club, the American flag is prominently displayed. It's not something that's hauled out for an occasion. It's always in the room. It's omnipresent. Uh, Possibly lost on Lori was the tremendous legacy of the Union League Club, the President's Room, where Barack Obama was asked to run for president. It was all lost on Lori. So who is the winner of this debate? It would have to be, wait for it, the Union League Club. If you would like to join us at Conservative Coffee Hour, Conservative Coffee Hour is every Saturday at 10 a.m. Central Time on Zoom. I will include my email in the description of this video. I'll be happy to send you an invitation. And I look forward to seeing you very, very soon.